Okay,
You can do your thing if you
that's
want.
all right.
You went to the barrel once it has a hole in it.
As far, what was the most common like wood?
Curly maple.
That's why Smith is
Maple.
Yeah, almost 9 times out of 10, it's maple. There's always hard and dense wood like walnut or cherry or some of the hardwood.
You can pick up and handle.
Does it come from like one solid chunk and you sand it down or whittle it down? Or?
Yeah, well, you can see pistol stocks drawn on this piece of wood over here. And we'll cut those out to an oversized shape, inlet all the metal parts like the barrel, the lock, trigger, and butt plate. And once they're in place, we can cut away all that excess wood and shape this big square chunk down so it looks like a gun.
And that's what you were doing when we walked in?
Yeah, I'm using a cabinet scraper to actually smooth it down. I've already rough shaped it with these rasps.
Okay. They, is there any kind of finish you put on it to?
Yeah, it'll be stained with nitric acid to make it red-brown,
Okay.
and then finished with a varnish finish.
What's the most common gauge or caliber?
Well, it's whatever you tell me. Most rifles usually are somewhere between about 45 gauge and 20 gauge. Everything was measured in gauge at that time, so this one is 55 caliber, but you know that would be about 30, 37, 38 gauge, somewhere around there.
The bullets at this point, they're still round musket balls that you would dye at your house?
Yeah, everything was cast in a mold that went with your gun, because they're not standard sizes. You've got to cast your own bullets.
Okay.
This machine's for cutting grooves. Okay.
Oh yeah.
And you call it
What, as far as the
You said the barrel has grooves in it.
culture status, I guess. I mean, how were the gunsmiths look? Were they lower level, mid?
Part of the expanding middle class, like any tradesman. So, you know, you're paid by what you produce, not how many hours you work.
But it's considered like a skilled occupation. It's not just.
Oh yeah, it was. It was skilled occupation, like any trade, really.
You don't use word rifle in the names, so don't have grooves.
What?
Usual reference.
As far as the payment, was it mostly actual money, or was it a barter system, or a mixture of both?
Barter doesn't work very well. That's why they invented coins 1,000 years ago. You know, if you're like most, you're a farmer and you buy everything on credit because you've only got money when you've sold the crops at the end of the season. So if they know you, they extend credit pretty freely. So when you buy everything on credit, and when you've got money at the end of the season, you go pay off all your bills.
Having his rifle stolen on his march from
Mostly men or women? Were women allowed to be gunsmiths?
Yeah, there are women that work in all trades.
Was it common, or is it?
No, it's not very common, but yeah, I know of a couple of London women gunsmiths, but that's pretty rare.
So, even in colonial America?
Oh yeah, I don't know of any working here.
We've been having this discussion about my wife and I.
Okay. Was it like a family trade?
Well, yeah, things are passed on through an apprenticeship, and it could be your son, but it's also likely to be an orphan. Orphans are wards of the church and the court, and they apprentice children into whatever trade the community needs.
Would the apprentices get paid, or was there payment learning the trade, being able?
Yeah, you don't get paid at all, but you're provided room, board, food, clothing, a place to sleep.
all that sort of stuff.
When they were apprentices, was that looked on as
But I guess it just changed.
like the actual gunsmith, or did they not really get the recognition until they were actually?
Yeah, they're learning the trade. And on your 21st birthday, you're free to go, and hopefully at that point you know enough to make a living. So you're bound to the shop. You can't leave, you can't get married, you can't have children, gamble, drink, enter into contracts, or do anything that's going to cost the master of the shop money. But at 21, then you're free and you're able to work for wages at that
At
point.
21, are you always, I mean, if you need more time, can you stay on, or is it once you're 21?
It's over.
Get it or go.
So, right.
One more question about that actual gun. Are they all octagon barrels at this point? Or
Rifles traditionally are. Shotguns, like the bottom gun is octagon for about a third of the breech and round out toward the muzzle. And military gun barrels are just round.
It's in use by the time the Civil War.
what was the material used for the, I mean, do you make the barrels? Or?
Yeah, lock, stock, and barrel.
At speed and accuracy for the first time.
Yeah, they're made out of wrought iron.
Even if you're in the Tennessee backcountry in the 20th century, you're still not shooting that pointed bullet.
Sure.
That's it.
In the journal article, Gunsmithing in Colonial America, H.B. Gill backs up the information that we found on our field trip to Williamsburg. He states the fact that by 1608 there were documented gunsmiths as a profession in colonial Virginia.
In addition to guns, colonial citizens would prepare themselves by making or shipping in cannons. These cannons would be used during the upcoming French and Indian War and the Revolutionary War. Williamsburg provided a demonstration of the firing of a cannon so we could see the many steps needed before one could fire off one cannonball.
Excited individuals here, otherwise that was pitiful. Let's try that again. Good afternoon, everyone. That's a little better. All right. Now, what we have behind me here, this is a light 3-pounder battalion gun, although I assure you it is not very light. It weighs about 450 pounds. But light is the fact that it's going to be firing an undersized charge, but overall it's less than something like, say, a heavy 3. The idea is that as a light gun, this can be moved fairly quickly across the battlefield by a team of personnel. Obviously, for long distances, we'll have a draft animal pulling it. But on the battlefield, you can fairly simply pick up the trails and push this along as the infantry are advancing. Now, the other term about it, this is a gun. Now, under cannon, you've got howitzers, mortars, and guns. Now, a howitzer and a mortar both fire something called a shell that explodes. But this, being a gun, fires a solid cast iron ball. Can anybody guess how much it probably weighs?
3 pounds.
200 pounds.
Well, that'd be impressive. However, as a light 3-pounder, the ball that it fires weighs 3 pounds. So, all right, we're gonna do a test later, so I expect you all to score better on that. Now, that being the case, the reason we are firing this weapon here today as the noon gun is because as you are in the Continental Army, you'll spend all morning learning the manual of arms in the infantry, learning how to move your weapon, how to load by rote through its muscle memory. That being the case, what is your signal that you can stop doing this and get something to eat? The sound of the noon gun. If you've got an army of 20,000 personnel, how do you instantly let everyone know it's time to get something to eat? You fire something like this. So that's the purpose of the noon gun. Now what's going to happen here is as we are loading, first we are going to make sure the process itself is that we are clearing the weapon. So we have the first tool, looks like a wrought iron corkscrew, that's called the wad hook or the worm. That'll be set down the barrel to ensure that there's no kind of debris in the tube. Once that's removed, we have to make sure there's no sparks or burning embers from the previous firing. So thus we have the sponge, that's lamb's wool on the end of the pole. It'll be sent down next. Afterwards, we'll be introducing the next charge. Now, on the battlefield, we're going to be using approximately about 3/4 of a pound of gunpowder. But in this case today, for the sake of all of our eardrums, we're going to use about 3.6 ounces. So this will be a quiet cannon. But again, that's in quotations. So, otherwise, next we're going to be, after we introduce that charge, ramming it down into the breech, we'll create our fuse by the use of our bombardier, who will use a pick to recreate a cavity, then they will fill with gunpowder. After which, we do have our very outstanding volunteer down there who is going to be actually firing it with a linstock. Now, if you all have any questions as for the details of any aspect of this, we'll certainly be available for questions afterward. But in the meantime, When I say make ready, if you don't like loud noises, I advise covering your ears.
Where are you from?
I don't see you, right? We're north of Pittsburgh. Well, I don't know.
People wear the white wig.
That was more high, like high class, so that means you have a lot of very wealthy.
How do they get the wig white? Is it just dyed that way?
Oh no, it'll be powder or
This stuff is real.
they some. I guess they're gonna shave your hair
Oh,
first.
look at that!
So, yeah,
Oh.
that's what the sign is between the barber and they're shaving all your hair out.
Very cool. Good.
If you ladies want to be successful, you do see some of the ladies' coiffures up there. The natural colors like this is more for day wear, whereas the lighter colors are more for formal. But ladies, for you all to walk about with your hair down, it's not proper at all. It would be as if I was walking about my undergarments. You have physicians. How can you identify them by the clothes in which they wear? Well, you see, that's what these wigs oftentimes represent, your occupation. And do you all have dress clothes? Travel clothes, perhaps? We have wigs for travel, we have wigs for fancy parties, and we have wigs for various occupations. That's why you see I keep it covered. But if my hair was dressed in one of the simple fashions, I wouldn't have to cover it. You see. And ladies are wearing wigs, madam, just like your husband, because you want people to know who you be. We've got rich folks back home, I'm sure you've got poor folks, I can identify them. Sometimes it's the vehicle in which you ride in, sometimes it's the home in which you reside in, or the manner of accoutrements that you possess, your shoes, perhaps your gentlemen, your pocket watches, what have you, your caps, your wigs, all of that says something. I don't know one of you, but for you to cross that threshold puts you in the 5% who can afford to wear wigs, because 95% of those living here in America can barely put food on the table, barely put clothes upon your back. You would be more concerned about survival. You folks don't have to worry about that. You've mastered the art of survival. One would hope.
Yeah.
All right. So was it always women who worked here, or did men work here as well?
Typically, a milliner is going to be a woman. So if you come to a millinery shop, you're probably going to expect to see a woman owning and operating these businesses.
Okay, so they owned them themselves?
Typically, yes, or they would run them, depending on the situation. So, like, for example, Margaret Hunter is the woman that owned this shop, and she was an unmarried woman, so that meant that she could legally own property.
Okay.
So she owned this building behind it, which was the kitchen and quarter, and then also she owned the stock and trade. She also owned 10 enslaved individuals that worked on the property too.
Oh.
So now you do occasionally see references to man milliners, but they do say man milliner, which
means I think milliner is associated with women.
Right.
Yeah.
Was it looked down upon for men to be milliners, or?
There's a little bit of tension when you see men entering the trade, because women are kind of a little bit territorial about it. You know, it's their trade; they don't want it taken away from them. Right. So there is a little bit of tension there, and it is so feminine that sometimes the men are considered more feminine, at least from kind of this more of a satirical perspective. There's a play in the 1780s that kind of laughs at the man milliner.
Oh, okay.
So.
So did they usually have their daughters as apprentices?
Sometimes, but not always. So it's not as though, you know, just because your mom's a milliner means you'll be a milliner. Though if you were brought up in more of kind of like a trade setting, realistically you are going to then serve an apprenticeship to learn some sort of trade.
Right.
Be it maybe millinery, mantua making, which is gown making, or you might be a tinsmith, you might be a blacksmith. It just depends on where you're living.
And all of y'all's material and stuff, was that shipped in, or did you guys?
Sure, yeah. Most of the fabrics that we're selling pretty much all the fabrics we're selling in a millinery shop are going to be imported. So we're selling chintzes and calicos, which are coming from India. We're selling black and white silk gauzes, and silk was coming from the eastern region of the world, so places like Italy, China, Persia, India. And then of course we're also selling fine linen, like Irish linen, for example, or Holland linen, which is a fine linen. And then also wool. Well, we're not selling wool in our shop actually, but other shops in the city are selling wool.
Okay. Why did you guys not sell wool?
I think it's because we typically sell items or fabrics that are better suited for either ladies' gowns, and like a heavier wool broadcloth tends to be made up into, say, a man's suit.
Right.
So
when people were coming here shopping for clothes, it was usually more of something for like something special, not everyday use.
So a milliner is going to sell fashionable ornaments, essentially anything you would call an accessory. And so it might mean a work apron, it might mean a fashionable apron. The difference is really going to be the textiles. So while I may not sell you a coarse, say, checked linen to have an apron made out of, you certainly can buy it elsewhere in town.
Right. And these hoops that you have hanging up behind you, those sat on the women's hips?
They do, yeah. So these hoops are going to drawstring around the waistline, and then the skirts will be lifted out to the side.
Right.
So the silhouette is to kind of pull your skirts out.
Right. And they wore those every day, like every time they left the house, or was it just for special occasions?
Well, typically, so if they're in fashion, say if it's like 1774, this will create the ideal silhouette. You're going to wear them just kind of throughout the entire day, not just for a special occasion. Right. A larger set of hoops that, say, lift the skirts out to here, those are reserved for formal dress, but these are more everyday fashion. Okay. And you see examples of like cooking maids wearing these hoops too. So some women who are doing physical tasks will choose to wear hoops because they want to be fashionable.
Did people ever bring slaves in here and have them fitted for clothing?
Yes. So if you're a slave owner, you're going to bring that enslaved man or woman potentially here to have, say, like a gown made for them, or you would take that enslaved man to a tailor to have his suits made. Now, it depends on what the job of that enslaved person is. Right. If they're a lady's maid, they're going to be dressing very fashionably. If they're someone who works, say, in a field context, doing very physical, hard work, then their clothing might be made kind of through a contract with, like, say, a larger firm to produce jackets and petticoats, kind of in a larger kind of mass kind of context, potentially ready-made or just kind of made in basic sizes for the enslaved women. Right. So it just depends on, again, the job and what they're doing. You also see examples of some enslaved men and women who will have some of their own money because they might have, say, sold chickens and eggs at market. So they might come into a shop like ours to buy ribbon or stockings.
Okay. So, and they could come in like on their own, or did their owners usually come with them?
My understanding of it, based on accounts, is that they came themselves. However, it's possible that their owners might be with them too, just depending on the situation. Right. It's likely, though, that their owners will know where they are when they are coming shopping.
Okay. And these hats and stuff that you have up here, those are for big dress-up items, or?
The larger hats up here are intended to be worn over top of very tall hair. So, for example, this image illustrates a woman with very tall hair, which potentially could be her own hair. It could be a wig. I've been able to dress my hair this tall before without the wearing of a wig, but just the addition of other, for example, hair pieces to give that shape and form, but then also the addition of fake curls, which are called buckles. and then the bonnet is going to go over top of that big hair.
And was it for like style, or was it more for protection from like wind and stuff while they were outdoors?
I think it's a little bit of both, a little bit of fashion and function.
Okay, very nice. And the bodices and stuff, so you guys would do underclothing as well?
So the stays, like the pink ones up there on the line, that's what we wear to support our backs and our chests. And that's also will give the silhouette to the clothing.
Right.
And so that will create the form and the structure. And pretty much all levels of society wear stays for support. The only time you tend not to see women wearing stays is either if they're, say, like 8 or 9 months pregnant, if they're, again, an enslaved woman working, say, on a farm, they tend not to be issued stays by their masters. And then you also don't see some women wearing stays in summertime in the South because it is so hot.
Right. And so would young girls wear them, or like at what age would they begin wearing them?
Sure. Stays like the ones here are typically worn at the time a child learns how to walk. So either baby boys or baby girls are going to be wearing stays.
The boys would wear them too?
They do. Boys are going to wear stays up until the ages of about maybe 4 or 5. When they stop wearing their gowns and they start going to their tailor and they're breeched for the first time, then the waistcoat, coat, and breeches are going to give the proper posture and carriage for the boy. So, but it's all about kind of just teaching the child to stand tall and straight.
Right.
And stabilizing their middle.
Okay. Well, I think that is about it.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
for your
Sure.
time.